Hello, my lovely, intelligent, and ever articulate students. I want to formally welcome you all to today's class. I'm very optimistic that today's class will be quite engaging and inciting. For class today, we shall be taking a holistic review of the settings, the styles, and thematic concerns in Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream. Midsummer Night's Dream, like I explained in our last class to you, is one of Shakespeare's classics, a work weaved around the love interests of four major characters in the person of Hermia, Lysander, Demetrius, and Helena. All the turns and twists that eventually led to them leaving Athens into the fairy lands in the forest. So for our class today, we'll be looking at first the setting of this quite interesting work of art. When we talk about the setting of any literary work of art, we're talking about the place, not just the place, but also the time that the literary work of art is written. So, setting has to do with both the time and the special location of the literary work of art. For Midsummer Night's Dream, the work is both set in Athens, a Greek society, and also the forest, which is the abode of the fairies. The question that comes to mind now is, these dual settings, was the relationship, was the link, and was the point of convergence between the Athens society and the forest, which is a far divide of Athens with its own laws. For Athens is quite an organized place with its laws that gives so much leverage and power to parents, so much so that they dictate the suitor of their children, who they get engaged to and who they eventually get married to. Any attempt as a child to go against the dictates of your parents attracts the Athenian law, which means death. This played out between Aegeus, the father of Hermia, when he tried to invoke the Athenian law because the daughter, Hermia, has refused to get married to Demetrius, which is what he wants. Rather, she wants to get married to the person she is emotionally attached to, in the person of Lysander. This didn't really play out well. As a result, Hermia and Lysander decided to elope to the forest, which takes us back to the setting of the forest. That's where the link is, because they eloped from Athens in order to escape that Athenian law. They got into the forest. Eventually, not just both of them, but Helena and Demetrius as well. So the settings of this literary work, Midsummer Night's Dream, as you can see, is both in the Greek city-state of Athens and in the forest. So outside the setting of this literary work, we shall be looking at some of the technicalities, technical employments of use of motifs, symbols that creates imagery as employed by the playwright, a very prolific one at that, William Shakespeare, a household name in theatre. William Shakespeare uses motifs and symbols in the play Midsummer Night's Dream. It is expedient for us to know what motifs as a device entails in any literary work of art. Motifs are recurring structures, contrasts, and literary devices that can help develop and give more information about the themes of any literary work of art. That's on motifs. Then for symbols, symbols are those things that represent or stand for something else. For this literary work, the motifs and the symbols employed by William Shakespeare, they are quite numerous. But for our concern today, we shall be narrowing it to just very few of these symbols. And one of them is the moon. The moon creates an imagery. It's actually a major imagery in the play. The play revolves around the image of the moon and moonlight. The play begins with Theseus and Hippolyta planning their wedding under the moon. Now the question is, who is Theseus? Theseus is the Duke of Athens, a very lovable duke who leads his people with all sense of sincerity. So we see the play begins with Theseus and Hippolyta planning their wedding under the moon. The word moon is repeated 3 times in the first 9 lines of the play. And we know when we repeat any material or any words in a literary work of art, it means it's very important, because repetition in literature, like we all know, creates emphasis. That means the playwright is trying to make us understand that the moon plays a major aspect in this literary work of art. To create the visual image that the play happened in the night. Okay, so this creates that visual image. As a reader, when you go through it, you begin to have a concrete understanding of the environment, and that's what imagery does for us. So for this literary work of art, the appearance of the moon there at the opening scene between Theseus and Hippolyta goes a long way to show to us that the work actually started at night. So in order for William Shakespeare, the playwright, to make the audience know that the play happens in the night, he creates a dreamlike atmosphere in which the characters fall asleep and always feel as if they were dreaming. Is a recurrent feature in this literary work of art. We see the characters falling in and out of sleep. This is just to create that dreamlike feature in the literary work of art. So outside the use of the moon to create that imagery, we also have another device employed by the playwright, And this has to do with the language of the work. Prose as against verse. Prose as against verse. Well, for this particular deployment of language, use of prose as against verse is weaved around class. Okay, so for prose, the playwright masterfully created it in such a way that is the language of the common people in Athens and even in the fairy land, in the forest, most especially in the forest. The low class, they engage in the use of prosaic language, showing how unlettered they are, while the proletariats, those in the upper class, like the duke and those exalted nobles, both in Athens and in the fairy lands, they engage in the use of verse. So like most of Shakespeare's plays, the division of prose and verse is weaved around the class boundary. Okay, for the lower class commoners, they speak less refined language. That's those in the lower rung of society. When they communicate, we see them communicating in very unrefined language, less refined language, while the nobles speak very refined language. They make, like I said earlier, they make use of verse. Shakespeare also uses the contrast between the mode of speaking between the commoners and the nobles to create a sense of humor. He uses it to create a sense of humor. So like when we look at this literary work of arts, Midsummer Night's Dream, when you look at the craftsman's play, and you know the craftsman's play is the play within the play, going to show us the complexity in the literary work of art. You know, when we have a play within the play, it's no longer chronological. There's now an infusion of complexity in the literary work of art. So for the craftsman play, the performance, you see how unrefined the cast were in their use of language, especially in the person of tips. Okay, so outside prose and verse, we shall be taking a look at some of the other employments in this particular work of art. So we will look at the magical juice flower. This is one very important aspect in the Midsummer Night's Dream. The juice is extracted from the flower that was once struck with one of Cupid's arrows. Talking about the magical flower juice, you know, in the forest where Lysander, Hermia, Demetrius, and Helena got entangled in, you can see that this magical flower juice is employed by Puck, a very cunning, witty, and crafty servant of Oberon the king. Though it was not intentional, he placed the magical flower juice on the eyelids of the wrong persons, and we saw all that happened as a result of that. We all know, the magical flower juice, when placed on the eyelid of a sleeping person, the moment that person wakes up, the first person he or she beholds, he becomes emotionally attached to that person. So we saw how the Cupid flower, the magical flower juice, was wrongly applied by Puck, and all the conflict is generated at the end of the day. The magical flower juice is quite potent, as we can see in how our major characters now got entangled with one another. Oberon was not happy that his servants had made this grievous mistake and mandated him to go and remedy the situation, which he eventually did at the end of the day. So William Shakespeare actually employed some of these motifs and imagery to create a very concrete picture, which was well crafted. So we'll send the use of the magical flower, prose and verse, the moon. The craftsman play is also a technical one as employed by William Shakespeare. So outside all these devices, it is very important we look at some of the thematic concerns in this literary work of art. Like we all know, any literary work of art must have the message it's trying to pass across. And this message can either be objective or subjective, depending on the writer, the intent of the writer, the message the writer is trying to pass across. William Shakespeare, as a creative writer, employs some of these devices, this thematic concern in his work. And one of them is the difficulty associated with true love. Difficulty associated with true love. William Shakespeare examines how people tend to fall in love with each other and goes ahead to look at how people love one another at a time of their lives and at other times of their lives. So for Demetrius, this was very, very glaring, and even for Hermia, one of our major character, and Lysander, we see this true affection. Okay, this affection they had one for another, and the difficulty they encountered in trying to express this affection, okay, because of the very crude and draconic Athenian law, they were unable to express their affection for one another. And for Helena, she is a very twisted character because one finds it difficult to understand her true intent. She's ready to sacrifice a long-time friendship with Hermia just because of her emotional concern. So outside that, we also have the theme of appearance and reality. Appearance and reality. Okay, so the playwright succinctly harps on the difference between appearance and reality. Tries to let the readers know that dreams are not real, even though they appear to be so. Okay, so there's a sharp divide between dream, your aspiration, what you tend to have, and what is concrete reality. There's a sharp divide between dream and reality. So William Shakespeare tried to make this obvious through the characters of Hermia, Lysander, Demetrius, and also Helena. So outside the theme of appearance and reality, another very important theme to be looked at is the theme of jealousy. Okay, so for the theme of jealousy, we can see the theme in both the human realm and also in the realm of the fairies. For the human realm, Helena was a very jealous person, And you can see because of this jealousy, she did all she did in order to create that discord between Hermia and her love interest, just because of her selfish desire. Also, this theme of jealousy played out in the fairies, where Oberon and Titan and his queen, because of the India boy, Oberon felt the wife is no longer paying attention to his needs and became jealous of the India boy. To him, the wife is giving too much attention to the India boy, and as a result of that, he is not getting all the attention that he is supposed to be getting from the wife. So we can see, not just in the human realm, also in the land of the fairies, also we can see this element of jealousy playing out. Another concern here is a theme of magic. So magic in the use of the flower juice is quite magical and bizarre to see that you apply the extract from just a flower, and it changes the orientation, it changes the ideal of a person automatically. So the fairies magic, which brings about many of the most bizarre and hilarious situations in the play, is another very central element, very central to the fantastic atmosphere of Midsummer's Night Dream. So magic here, as employed by the playwright, is one major theme also in the literary work of art. So talking about the styles, talking about the imagery and the themes employed by William Shakespeare, looking at it all, come to see that the work actually is an interesting read, and as such, despite the language which in the literary work has been able to simplify for us, is quite interesting. So as students, you all need to get your copy, because it's very, very important that you all read this and get all the information that the playwright is trying to pass across. So for now, it's a goodbye for me until we meet in our next class. Thank you.